Welcome back to another video here on Madden 24, and today we're doing a channel classic, which is, of course, the top 10 most overpowered position switches in the game. Now, when I first posted this idea, I don't even know how many Maddens ago, I kind of did just the actual players themselves, so there might have been 5 examples of, like, wide receiver to running back or wide receiver to tight end, and that was my 10. But ever since maybe last Madden the year before then, I've decided to go for the actual positions themselves. So, you know, if an example of like quarterback to running back is one, instead of, I having like 10 freaking things for that, video's over, I'll have, a couple examples for each position. So there's a little bit more examples and it's a little less gimmicky, I guess. But if you guys enjoy this video, you guys enjoy this, me doing this every Madden, because I think it's just a classic. It's like almost like, hey, there it is, the video. Maybe leave a like, subscribe if you're new. If there's any other kind of ideas like this you would like to see tested, because I know there's a lot of things in different games even, that's not Madden, where I'm like, oh, that's a really good idea. I wouldn't do that because it's a lot of work, but it is cool to see, and I'm interested in that. Let me know in the comment section below. In the past, we've done like, how much does a 99 overall fullback matter? And because the game has changed quite a bit since I've done those videos, those might be videos I bring back, and if you guys are interested in that, let me know. Like I said, maybe leave a like, subscribe if you're new. If you're not new, and you know these videos, come on now. Maybe, maybe continue being a G. I don't know, what are you supposed to do, subscribe again? That would be Please don't do that. I know I'm talking myself into it, but we're going to start with quarterback to running back, like I just admitted. And, some of these are a little gimmicky, so I took most of the ones out that would make a lot of sense. Like Lamar Jackson, we busted as a running back because he's 96 speed, but he has all those abilities. It's kind of dumb to do that. Whereas Malik Willis, you could see, he's not even really that much of a quarterback option anymore if you're the actual Titans. I'd probably just trade him off rather than doing that. But as you could see, 90 speed, 93 excel, 92 agility. If, let's say, you're using the Titans franchise and you're like, screw this, dude, I've got to use him somewhere. I'm using Will Levis as my QB, or Tannehill even if you're crazy. I want Willis to play, but I don't have a spot for him. He actually loses no overall going to running back. And outside of Derrick Henry, which obviously he'll need a break at some point, he is actually the fastest option they have. Carrying is definitely a problem, and it really doesn't help that all of their guys are 91 carrying. But obviously, with 83 juke move, 80 spin move, it's not just about is he super overpowered, but also how much fun it would be. Because once again, if you're using the Titans franchise, at this point, it seems like you're probably using Levis, and if you are, Willis is just being wasted. So put him at running back or trade him. Could be kind of fun putting him at running back, seeing it out. It would be cool to put him actually at wide receiver or whatnot, but don't really think that's going to work out as the best running back, best quarterbacks in the game. Their highest receiving stats would still put them like, on average about 15 overalls less than what they're supposed to be at. And then we kind of another gimmicky one, more gimmicky than ever. All the other ones on this list, though, every other player is not. I just wanted to have a number 10 that was a little fun, and that is Justin Fields, obviously a guy that is ridiculous at running in real life, and I think it's really unfair, even as a Packers fan, and there's some of you guys are like, wait a minute, he's going to do a Bears franchise as a Packers fan? I'm not watching that, even though I think it would be like the most interesting thing ever. It's not fair that Fields, gets crapped on when he really never had a chance, but in this realm of fun, Justin Fields doesn't drop an overall either, and there are some of these positions that do drop, but they're still overpowered, right? Like, let's say, I don't know, you have a freaking pistol in a video game that does 10,000 damage and the average enemy damage is 6,000, right? And you get the pistol changes to down to 8,000. Just because it's downgrade doesn't mean it's not overpowered, right? Terrible example. I don't know what I'm even saying. But Justin Fields, very fast, very busted. Maybe once again, like Willis, maybe you're in a draft. Like you don't play well as the Bears. You have the number 1 overall pick again. In the draft is a generational player. He's got 90-plus speed or something. He's generational, and you don't want to pass on him. Fields at running back would be insane, and once again, more than ever, insanely fun. A 6'3", 228-pound, 93 speed running back would be so fun, but once again, probably not the most viable option. But regardless, that is number 10 of our list. And obviously, we are starting slow, so these aren't going to be the most overpowered just yet. It's a top 10 list. And number 9 is going to be free safety to cornerback. Lots of times this would be a CPU thing where you're drafting and you realize you got a guy that's 74 speed, 68 74 speed, 74 man, 68 zone or something. You already have a, safety or corner, whatever it is. You need the vice versa. This free safety to cornerback is pretty decent. Plus, in general, maybe not exactly this example, you're going to get guys that are probably a little bit better in block shed than the normal corner, and obviously hit power, but they're not overpowered in the sense that it's unrealistic, right? We see cornerbacks playing free safety. We see free safeties playing corner. Typically, if you're, the Packers, he drops 1 overall, but once again, you're getting that insane balance at man and zone, plus the hit power that most players don't have. I believe he would probably be the number 1 hit power now, even over, well, obviously over Ramsey, but Ramsey, I believe, is the highest hit power at corner. And just like that, Holland, who's not even that high of a hit power in the game, is the number 1 at corner, which is pretty busted. I should actually keep these because then I could just do a sim or something at the end. But then we move on to another player, Tyrann Mathieu. Most of these guys do drop an overall, but they're not like significant drops. This would be more for when it makes sense. Holland maybe makes sense. You're like, hey, all I need is a fast free safety. I don't need someone that's talented. And you want a really sick number 2 over Howard, who doesn't really last that long, perhaps. That could be an option. Tyrann Mathieu, their cornerbacks, they have, decent cornerback 2s. But you look at this group, and you're like, hey, I can start Howden at safety, but not a corner. You have 2 insane corners now with Tyrann Mathieu at number 2. And then another player, a classic free safety at cornerback move. I think even he might have been listed at cornerback 1 or 2 of the weeks for Madden, is Terrell Burgess going from free safety to cornerback. Another drop in overall by 1, but he's so balanced, decent speed, and especially for a team like the Commanders, who don't really even need him as a starter. Maybe they don't even need him as a corner starter either, but they don't really need safety. That would be maybe a viable option. Now we move on to another one, which is DT to DN. Ed Oliver, if I'm not mistaken, is actually boosted even higher in his acceleration and speed ratings than he ever has before. Sitting at an 81 overall, you're probably thinking, why would I even want this DT at a D-end? He's a little on the bigger side, and he's not going to be as fast as the traditional D-end. The thing about him is he obviously has higher block shed ratings than most D-ends, if your name's not Von Miller or one of the top guys. So maybe not the best DT, as I probably actually prefer, if you're trying to go for OP, I would actually prefer a finesse DT, which will come and play one of the other scenarios a little later. But obviously, Ed Oliver jumps 1 overall, going from DT to DN. And then another one that might make sense, because you're like, hey, I got Fletcher Cox and Jordan Davis as starters, even though Jordan Davis is a little bit more of a rotational guy. I'm going to put Jalen Carter at DN instead, even though, once again, it might not make sense because the Eagles are pretty stacked across the board. But it fits, the option is there, and ironically enough, the reason why this team is thin is one of the players I actually had for a great example was on the Eagles, but he's not anymore. Once again, dropping 1 overall is not the worst thing. At left end, Brandon Graham, not the best. You could definitely use Carter there, and maybe it helps him develop quicker because it'll be a little easier to get to the quarterback, and then you put him back at DT, something like that. But then one of the other guys, Milton Williams, very fast, drops down in overall none. He actually stays at 75. So, you see Ed Oliver goes up 1, Milton stays the same, and then, Jalen Carter drops 1. But basically the example of DT to DN, typically that's another situation where it would make more sense in the actual draft itself. But here, for the Bears, if they traded for Milton Williams, he would be their fastest and best defensive end, other than Trevis Gibson, but also more developable. So, it's more of a CPU draft when you see all those like 80-plus speed DTs. Maybe you don't need a DT, or there's so many of them, you can put one on the edge, perhaps. And then one of my most favorite position switches, which maybe is another, this isn't really like unbelievable news. Who would have thought a big guy can play DT? But this one is actually OP when you're physically playing the game. John Franklin Myers at DT might be the most overpowered switch you can make in the entire game. Not just by overall, he goes up 2 overalls, but his 88 finesse at that position puts him now at number 2. But I don't know what it is about him. Even in our Seahawks franchise last year, I can't remember what Madden franchise, was it the Dolphins maybe, I think, that we traded for him and put him at DT? He just has the quickest finesse move going against an interior lineman that you could possibly see. And he, of course, like I said, does jump that 2 overalls. Another great example, Cameron Jordan, perhaps. The team in general kind of needs help on the D-line. DT might not even be that big of a need anymore, but Cameron Jordan, I believe, also goes up in overall +1, which isn't super significant. But once again, that position, you can get to the quarterback, you can stop the run. If you're really struggling, especially with his lowered power move but higher block shed, it makes a little more sense to do that at times. Once again, specifically in the CPU draft, when you grab those guys that are a little more common, that are bigger on the DN. And now we move on to maybe a move that I wouldn't do because I like a fast user, but linebacker to safety. Now, Trey Anderson's a 6'4" linebacker. I probably don't change that guy with this speed, this height, and change direction. But if you're now talking about the physical overpowered upgrades of overall, Troy Anderson fits the bill as he goes from a 67 overall middle linebacker up to a 71 overall free safety. We see plenty of 6'4", linebackers that are, decently fast, maybe not as athletic, but as far as a safety goes, that is very rare to see that kind of size and speed. And then, of course, the big thing is the fact that his zone coverage sucks, right? As a linebacker, he's going to get abused with this. As a safety, him being in the zone, it won't matter as much typically when I, experience it. I feel like I just go for a completely fast, athletic safety more than caring about their zone coverage versus linebacker. So this is a viable option. Now, I probably wouldn't because, once again, like we talked about, that linebacker speed and kind of change direction is ridiculous, but it is a legitimate option, and it's kind of busted because of the size. Then we have another one, Tremaine Edmonds. We go even higher with the size, 6'5", 88 overall, and cornerback could be interesting. I wouldn't recommend it. And then he jumps 1 overall as well. The big thing about him would be that he actually has decent ratings, especially block shed. I would imagine that would easily put him at number 1 for block shed, and it does by a good almost 10. And even, Troy Anderson, not great there, would be a great strong safety over free safety. I just went to free safety because it's the closest thing. And then another great example would be Trenton Simpson, the rookie from the Ravens. He goes from a 70 to a 72. Now we have the move at number 5, cornerback to safety, a move that I actually really wanted to go for with our Bears franchise because I don't see Kyler Gordon as a viable number 2 or even number 1, in Madden. And obviously you have a lot of other guys that could start there. Tyreek Stevenson would probably project as the number 2. Oje Moutier could be number 3, or Terrell Smith. I wish that age wasn't there, but he is very good too. And then Kyler Gordon, he goes up in overall from corner to free safety, only by 1, but these DBs, as you notice, safety to corner, corner to safety, aren't really the best for actually going up in overall. The only reason why that I'm not really able to do this is we obviously have some, stipulations, and one of the stipulations, you can't have crazy change of direction. As you can see here, he would actually tie for the highest in the league, and it's pretty crazy when you consider how slow he actually is. There are a couple of other guys that are up there too, but the big problem isn't that, he's pretty good change direction. The problem is he's pretty good change direction, and he can be usered pretty much anywhere on the field. I could, flip the zone, and he could play the flat, and I could just user a 92 change of direction corner / user, which is a little busted. But as far as, if you're playing on your own, I wouldn't consider this, broken. It's not like the equivalency of, starting a 6'10" wide receiver that's supposed to play D-end or something. I don't know, but you know what I mean. But that's a great example. Another guy, it's, typically for the guys that are a little bit too slow to be boundary, Julius Brents is a great example here. Is insane zone coverage, insane size, but he's not very fast, right? Do you really play him at the number 2 spot? I don't know if you can because he's so slow. But obviously at corner, at safety, he does drop 1 overall, but that's A-okay. He is a freak at safety, whereas at corner, you may struggle because of the overall of speed. Also, another example would have been Owen Pappoe, or Papo. I think he goes up a little bit in overall as well, but once again, the insane speed, that would be a decision you would have to make, which I don't know. I don't know if I would do it, but it is technically busted, so it's on the list. Isaiah Simmons is on the Buccaneers. Did they release him? Maybe they trade him. Actually, I don't even know if the AI trades. Actually, I haven't really paid attention. That's pretty sick if they do. Hopefully, it wasn't just a release because that makes no sense. But obviously, Isaiah Simmons. This is going to be safety to linebacker. A lot of guys that, kind of moved around a little bit, played in the box mainly, and, kind of were listed at linebacker. Isaiah Simmons, surprisingly, though, you do actually lose the overall, but I don't think you really care too much about that when you have a 6'4", 238-pound, speedy, high change of direction, safety to linebacker. Now, this is one that almost everyone would know, these types of positions. But, this is for maybe people that are brand new to the game that are like, that just didn't think about it. A lot of these guys would be great sub linebackers. Jeremy Chin's another guy we always do. In previous Maddens, we trade for him if we need a linebacker and we see him not getting offers, or in a fantasy draft and we forgot to get linebacker. They do drop an overall, like I said, but it's not significant enough to where it's like, oh, I can't do this. It's like 1 or 2 points, right? It's not crazy. Another really good one that actually maybe is more viable than just like cheesing would probably be the Cowboys. They have a couple of decent safeties, and they could easily start Donovan Wilson. Jeromepkr, he's 6'4". He's not even that crazy athletic, which probably hurts him at safety anyways. So you move him over to linebacker, and believe it or not, he actually, if I'm not mistaken, sticks it out as that 81 overall and doesn't lose a single point, which, it's pretty impressive because we're seeing all of these guys drop, but very good player. The block shed is a little lacking, which is probably why some of their overalls drop, but the coverage is also some of the best. And then one of my all-time favorites is any O-line switch at all. Really, just any O-line switch. In real life, it's a completely different story, right? You're not going to get a center that's going to be a god at tackle. You're not going to get a tackle that's going to be a god at center. But in Madden, that doesn't really matter. And obviously, we know that center probably doesn't matter too much in the game. Guards, tackles specifically, are the most important. So you get a guy like Frank Ragnow, and you're like, do I really want an 88 overall center when I could use a much higher overall left guard, right guard, whatever? Most of the positions from inside to tackle are going to drop 1 or 2, but that's still really good. 87 overall only drops 1. And then obviously you have a lot of positions that won't do that. Eric McCoy, I believe he jumps up in overall from 79 overall, a guy that was obviously toted and drafted as a guy that could move around the line, but has primarily played center. But once again, do you really want a center? Do you really need that center over the guard? That's obviously up to you, but he obviously becomes one of the best left guards in the game. He's very athletic, has the height for it, and is very strong and, solid, and he, goes from a 79 overall to an 80 overall. And then one of the other better ones would be tackle to guard. Now, do you really want, a 6'7" guard? Probably not, but there's obviously other examples, like Terran Armstead probably would go up in overall, but do you really want a franchise tackle with abilities playing guard? Probably not, but Trevor Penning goes from a 73 to, a 73. So you don't lose overall when you're crossing over the lineman. There might be some people that don't know that. Obviously, most of us veterans in Madden know, but there might be some that don't. So that's for the some that don't. And now we're on the juicers, the ones that we've all come for, the ones we know are the most OP you could possibly ask for, and that is wide receiver to tight end, which is number 2 on our list because we all know what number 1 is. Now, these teams are a little, thin because, we went to the regular season. They dropped some players. I didn't notice that. Is that glitched, by the way? It might have been because I tested some of these players before I started. Maybe? But apparently Chase Claypool has played 31 years. Still has yet to find out how to be consistent. But Chase Claypool, basically a tight end body with the speed of a receiver of wideness. From a 77 overall to an 82 at tight end. A guy that is insanely busted for that. And you could easily make the argument this would be a fair switch, in my opinion. Run block isn't great, but obviously he has the size. One of the biggest, thickest wide receivers. Yep, had to call another grown man thick. It's part of my game. But obviously, specifically for the Bears who have these 3 that you would want to develop, whereas maybe you can Cole Kmet is probably, I don't even know where Cole Kmet is. They just released a guy that's 30 mil cap penalty. But Cole Kmet, he's decent, but he is 82 speed, which is 10 less than Claypool. So I think it's fair, and of course it is overpowered. And then for some of the other examples, DK Metcalf is another great one because obviously he's huge as well in size and weight and height, whatever. Those are 3 things, even though 2 of them list both. He goes from an 88, was it? 89, doesn't really matter because either way he goes up in overall. 92 overall tight end. And I think I will do a sim at the end of this with all those position changes and see, what we're cooking with. Maybe some of the receivers at least, but DK Metcalf obviously going up in overall. Another great one is Michael Pittman. Now, the Colts do have a couple of developable tight ends, but in general, Pittman is rather slow. He ends up going from 85 to 88. You can take my word for it, or I'll just show you. Boom! 3 overalls up, which, I guess to be fair, when I'm editing, I could easily just up their ratings, but here you can go. you could compare them to the database. Surprisingly, Drake London actually didn't go up in overall going to tight end, and Alan Lazard was only from 78 to 80. But there, that's a very good example specifically when you're looking at this tight end room. Not athletic, not developable anyways. Lazard, not that, developable. Don't know how he has mentored. This is all glitching out hard. But 89 speed, 92 excel. Slow for a wide receiver, blazing for a tight end. And before they release everyone, you already have your big three if you really want them anyways. So very good option at tight end as well. Goes up 2 overalls. And then for our very final trick of the day, the most commonly known one, wide receiver to running back. Kadarius Toney is a great example because he obviously is insanely athletic. And he's an 81 overall. Most of these guys are going to jump quite high. Like I said, you could have easily validatedly, I don't even think that's a word, made the whole list wide receiver running back because they jump so high in overall. I'd probably be looking for guys with decent carrying. Kadarius Toney is kind of that. But insane juke move, you're going to get the ridiculous catching. So I would be very selective of who I would switch if I was trying to be as fair as possible. Also, I probably wouldn't do one with a running back that looks almost dead equal to him in running back ability. But another really good player, I think that would make a lot of sense, even though his receiving ability is probably a little bit too high to play that anyways. Well, I don't know where the hell he is, but that would have been Devin Duvernay, who is now a Niner, but 94 speed, 93 excel. You've seen that Ravens team was loaded with wide receiver talent, and I suppose they do have a couple of decent running backs, but a 25-year-old 94 speed running back would probably be a decent starter, whereas in that wide receiver room right now, if you're using the Ravens, I don't really see how you would possibly find a way to throw to him. But obviously, as you can see here, he jumps all the way to an 85 overall, one of the highest jumpers, of overall in the game. Obviously, the catch-in ratings are a little OP, which hence the title. A couple other options would have been Odell Beckham from 85 to 90. Debo would probably be great. He'd probably go from a 90 to a 99 just because he has ridiculous ratings. We're going to take a look. He also, I believe, goes up to a 92 or 93 at tight end, which is insane. And another busted one, I think, out of context would be Austin Eckler playing tight end as like an 80 overall, I'm pretty sure. But Debo jumping from a 90 to a 99 overall, which is a whole 9 points, and could have been even higher if he didn't already start as a 90. But that is going to be the list of the most top 10 overpowered. It is the most top 10 you will ever see. But the top 10 most overpowered position switches. I'm going to do a quick little sim with most of these players. Probably not going to look at the DBs and all that. That's just too random. But I am curious to see what happens when you actually have all these different players playing these different roles as receivers and whatnot. And we'll see if any of them are even in sim overpowered. All right, looking at it. Oh, I actually put Justin Fields back at quarterback, didn't I? I was about to say, he put up some pretty good rushing numbers. He's just a running quarterback. It's Kadarius Toney, 3.9 yards per carry, 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns. It's still pretty good, but in general, the Chiefs playbook is not the best for doing that. Also, we probably won't see Duvernay because he's on the Ravens. Duvernay's yards per carry, not bad, I suppose, for a backup. DK Metcalf, tight ends aren't really utilized too much in Seattle, so not a whole lot of great examples here. Not sure why I even showed this. This is detrimental to everything. But Chase Claypool, it's the most yards he would get as a Chicago Bear. Once again, it doesn't really help that we're changing wide receivers to tight ends on teams that don't really utilize the tight end in sim too much, but still decent numbers. But anyways, that is going to be it. Let me know what you guys thought of the list. If there's someone you know of that is busted when you change their position, I would actually love to know because it's an option for me in rebuilds or in franchise for the future anyways. So let me know in the comment section below. Maybe I'll leave it a like, the little heart thing. And if it's so busted, maybe I'll pin the damn comment. How about that? How about those apples? And of course, I know there's going to be somebody commenting saying, this video could have been 37 seconds and 9 milliseconds long. I'm not Wikipedia, all right? This is a freaking YouTube channel, dude. I ain't Wikipedia, all right? And I don't know how do do YouTube shorts. They're annoying. I've actually had a YouTube short ready for like 5 or 6 days ago, and it's not ready because it didn't really work. So I apologize, okay? I'm a noob. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed, maybe leave a like, subscribe if you're new. If you're not new, really appreciate your continued support, especially on this video because it's such a classic, right? Maybe follow me on Twitter, Jeromepkr, second channel, PKR Plays. And if you have any ideas like this in the future, top 10 sexiest fullbacks, that's a great video right there. Let me know in the comment section below. And, of course, a little bit later today, we'll have a Texans franchise video, which I think I'll have a like goal on that, which means we could have a back-to-back Texans franchise video with a rebuild tomorrow. So, another video today, another video or two tomorrow. We're cooking. Anyways, thanks for watching. I'll let you guys come back for next video. But until next video, see ya.